I'm joined now by Ewan McGaughey, the Professor at King's College London and expert on water regulation. Thank you very much for coming in. I mean, I'm really pleased to see the hedge funds buying the debt at a discount, because you're taking out people like the Canadian pension and so on, who are teachers, who are big infrastructure investors. They recognise they've made a bad investment. They're selling it off probably too cheaply. I mean, I think it was a great opportunity to buy as an investor. Mm-hmm. And now the market takes its course. And if Ofwat doesn't give Thames Water all the money it wants and it becomes insolvent, well, there are huge assets that the bonds are secured on. The shareholders will lose everything. The bondholders will lose some of their initial capital, but the market goes on.
Well, water regulation is very different to other kinds of insolvencies for other companies. So if Thames Water goes into what we call special administration, it's not like where a normal business goes bust and then the creditors take control. The government takes control in a special administration. And what the procedure allows the government to do is insist that the bondholders take a haircut, and that can be down to zero. So if we take a step back for a second, we have a huge failure with Thames Water, and Elliott Management, this vulture fund, yes, buying up the debt is a symbol of how badly it's failed. Thames Water wants to put up bills by 44%. They have paid £158 million in dividends to shareholders just this year. The CEO got £1.7 million in his pay when they had 350 pollution incidents. So, what we really need to ensure is that Elliott Management and the other bondholders in the consortium that think they can get rich quick out of our water companies aren't given a bailout by the government.
Oh, I completely agree with you on that. And you make the very important point that the special administration means that the bondholders can lose everything. Now, the assets are still there, so whether losing everything is right, I don't know. But the previous management and shareholders have behaved appallingly. They behaved rapaciously. They overpaid themselves. Interest rates went up. They had index-linked debt that then made their situation even worse. The shareholders and the bondholders deserve to suffer the consequences.
I think that is broadly correct. I mean, of course, there's a failure of regulation, and taking a step back, it's the broader failure of privatisation since 1989. So we've had £85.2 billion paid to shareholders since then. Water is a natural monopoly competition.
But we've also had billions of investment in water that we wouldn't have got from the government, and we know why we wouldn't get it from the government, because you would have the appeal that it should go to the pensioners for their winter fuel, or that it should go to the NHS, and that actually taxpayer investment in water prior to privatisation was lower than the levels that we've seen subsequently.
Well, I think that it's inaccurate to say that we've had more investment than we would have done if water was kept in a well-run public ownership model. On the contrary, we are going to pay about £12.5 billion over the next Parliament to private water company shareholders if we keep on doing the same thing as before. There will be 40% more investment if we had, what 90% of the countries around the world do, which is public ownership and control of water.
But public ownership doesn't lead to investment, because the state doesn't have excess capital. And there was never an example of a well-run public utility prior to privatisation. Well, not one of them, not British Telecom, not the Electricity Board, not British Gas, and not water. And the investment's been enormous, improved the water quality, reduced the leaks. There are still failings, but that's been a huge benefit of privatisation.
We might disagree on the history of whether there were well-run utilities. There are certainly better-run utilities all around the world, and Scottish Water does better than most English water companies, and it is in public ownership. So, we can see different ways forward, but I think that one thing that most people would agree upon is that we shouldn't be bailing out large banks.
Absolutely agree on that.
With public money. And most importantly, most of the investment is coming from bill payers. And so they should have a stake in a democratically run public service.
But if the capital collapses, then the return on capital reduces. Bill payers should get a cut. They should benefit.
There's lots of details.
Anyway, we've got to end with my little comment. But thank you very much to Ewan and to my panel. Coming up.